Hi, this is Crypto's Noob. Welcome to episode 10 of my Gods Unchained beta post-match review and strategy discussion. This match is brought to you at the request of GU Cards, who asked that I show a game where Flourish was defeated. We have gotten a lot of new players recently, and more coming on board is the word from the devs. And so, of course, a lot of them gravitate towards the obviously powerful combo of Flourish and Odin's Light also. But Flourish is the one that really seems to get to people because it can get pretty crazy. So anyway, here's a match where I went against Flourish, though I do want to give a disclaimer that prior to this, I'd probably lost the last 5 or 6 games I played against Flourish decks, and that Feddas is not playing a traditional kind of Flourish deck, as you will see. So let's get to it. Here we go. I have Tier in my hand to start. That is not was my ace card in this deck, but not really something I want to have on turn 1. This is my Odin's Wrath Viking deck, which I have switched to using the Intense Training power to buff creatures in my hand instead of the Blitz Onslaught power. I used to originally use the Intense Training, then I switched to Blitz, and now I switch back to Intense Training, and I think this is maybe the better choice of the deck. Get an Improviser up to start the turn. Feddas has a traditional start of the Nimble Pixie. 2 cards for the price of 1. It's a very common play in the Flourish deck. And here I like to just damage him directly rather than taking out one of his pixies. My thinking was that I have a whole other turn before he's able to flourish anybody. So let me go ahead and get my damage in while I can, and then I can kill one of his pixies next turn. Perhaps it would have been better to kill 1 pixie this turn and 1 pixie next turn, but I didn't do that. And here I get a little bit of luck and possibly bad deck building or bad luck on Feddas' part because he doesn't play anything on turn 2. All he does is damage me with his pixies. I think in his place I might have taken out my Improviser, but I guess he's expecting 1 at least to survive next turn where he can flourish. I use my White Raven to delve a Viking. I choose to go for the Open Sea Raider just because it looks like fun, and it's not one you get to play with very often because it's not actually available for deck building. It's just available as a random draw sometimes. And I really like the White Raven card. It's great to be able to pull a Viking that you need. When you need it. And there we go. Gets a buff for his pixie. Takes out my 4/2 creature. But he has an empty board, which is not really where you want to be on turn 3 with a Flourish deck. But that being said, it's not like he's in that big of a hole. All I have on the board is a 1/1 Raven. I bring out my Tactician, who has Protected and a little buff. In my hand I have the Viking Longship, which is a great card. Gives all of your creatures flank. That can be an especially good one to play when you're trying to get ready for a killing blow and there's a front line in the way. Get some unexpected attacks behind the front line. And now we get our first wall. A wall is a great card to have in a Flourish deck because it always starts out with a lot of health for a cheap cost. And you flourish it, just give it more health and possibly attack, which makes it difficult to take down. You have to beat on a wall that's fighting you back. I bring out one of my better cards too, the Return Einherjar, who gives buffs to other creatures whenever they attack. +3/+1 if it happens to be a Viking. So if I can keep her alive and get some attacks on her, she will buff up my other guys. until my army grows stronger. Feddas still seems to have a lack of creatures out. He has a very full hand, 7 cards in his hand. He has his Flourish spell available. I would expect some creatures to come out. One does. It's the Moonhound. This is a pretty sweet card. Returns mana to you every time it attacks. Though it is confused. But at the moment he has it behind the wall, so I can't do anything about that. Unless I use my Longship. Feddas restores some mana to himself, so he can restore some more mana with Backstock. And now gets a whole nother turn. Plays a Lightning Strike, which happens to take out my Einherjar. That's a stroke of bad luck for me. And he also gets to flourish his wall and his Moonhound. So now I have a 2/8 front line and a 4/5 mana refreshing Hound facing me. I have a lot of creatures in my hand, but I haven't had enough turns to really buff them. I need to also consider that, assume that he's going to cast Flourish again next turn, and could possibly buff his wall up to 4 attack. Buff his Hound up as well. So I need to make something happen here. So I pull out the Raider, who gives a bonus to the Tactician, who's now a 5/3 protected. So now I have to decide whether or not to attack the wall. And do the damage to it. Oh. Okay, I got a little behind there. I already ended my turn and chose not to damage the wall. Gets buffed up more. It's now back up to 10 health. The Moonhound is at 4/7. Gets an attack in on me. Things are not looking that great. Feddas still surprisingly doesn't have a lot of creatures on the board at the moment. He instead strikes out with another Lightning Strike, which only hits my Tactician once. So he survives for a round. I pull out my Raider. And a buffed minion as well. I think I'm hoping that when my Raven dies, it'll tag one of his 1 health dude, and it sure does. Debated using the Longship here and trying to get around his wall, but I don't think I would have had enough damage to kill anybody. Beside the 1/1. I don't think I could have killed the Moonhound as it was. I could have also brought out the armor and started buffing my guy's health. That might have been a good idea. Let me get through a few attacks from his guys. There's another Flourish. Gives a diamond Mark of the Warden to his Hound, who is now a 7/3. He has a 6/5. I think that's a Gru. And his 2/11 wall. And my Viking Horde, while decently powerful, is not looking like a match for what he has up. So I have to figure out a way to get around this wall, which is the Longship, obviously. But do it in such a way that I can also take out at least one of his creatures. So I bring out the Longship. We'll make a sacrifice attack on the wall. Squeeze your body flank. Does 1 damage to the Hound from the Open Sea Raider. And now I'm in position to sacrifice my Raider and my Tactician. Clear everything except his wall off the board. And then with my extra mana, I can go ahead and Intense Training and hope next turn I can reboot a bit and use my Raven to bring somebody out and hopefully get the armor out soon. I do have a Highland Defender who has a frontline buddy, goes along with him. That will be helpful for a turn. I have my 5/7 Viking Longship on board, ready to sail. And here's another example of how Feddas' deck is different. Most Flourish decks won't have a 5/5 Rhino or Bull, whichever that is. They more go for the little creatures, buff those up with the Flourish. He seems to have a few little creatures and a couple of walls, and then more heavy-handed tactics such as the Lightning Storm, which he's played 2 against me already. So now we have more of a fight. I've got my frontline guy to hold him off for a turn. I have my Longship to help people get around the wall. I seem hesitant to attack the wall. I guess I'm worried about my Longship being engaged by his beast, his confused beast accidentally. But I decided to go ahead and get in a 5-point blow, hopefully be able to take it down next turn. Intense Training deck can sometimes take a little bit of time to get going when you have this sort of board control facing you, where you have to constantly try to clear his creatures off so they don't get too strong. And I guess he's trying to do the same to me, since I have the Vikings that will often buff each other up. But the Intense Training deck is you need to get through the first couple of turns, and then hopefully be at a point where you're not being beaten down every turn, and you can play the Intense Training and sort of deliver a constant steady blow of buffed creatures onto the board. And Feddas goes for a nice clear the board card there, the Wildfire. Kills several of my guys, puts the burn on the others. Leaves little choice for me but to sacrifice my burning Vikings to take out his confused Rhino. Oh, I see, that's why it looks like a bull, because it's confused. And probably his Amazon too, just to keep him from buffing it more. I would like to do damage to him, but at this point I need to establish better control over the game before I can look to do much damage. So he cleared half the board with the Wildfire. I'm going to clear the other half with Combat. And take a chance to reset here. I have the White Raven in my hand. I have the Armorer, who is already buffed. I pull a very nice Delve and go ahead and bring Tyr into my hand. I'll be able to play him next turn since we're already at 7 mana. And then I pull out the Armor, do some Intense Training, which hits my Battle Bard, and end my turn. So now I'm feeling pretty good. The Tyr should help me control the board, and he gets a bonus to his attack every time he attacks, so that'll quickly add up, and I should be able to end this game in a few turns. Feddas does summon a nice Protector. Again, this is a more higher tier card, which you don't often see in Flourish decks. Flourish decks are generally focused on rushing more than buffing higher cards. Then it gives me my turn. I immediately bring Tyr out before I overthink it. And here's an interesting choice that I make. I decide, instead of sacrificing my Raven, to use my Armorer and just trust that his backline status will save him. Looking at it now, I probably would have used the Raven for sacrifice and just given 3 damage to his god, and let my Armorer buff himself or Tyr. In this case, I kind of looked out and the Armorer hit himself, so he wasn't at risk of being taken out with just a Swashbuckler or a Dart Maniac, or one of those other creatures that does just the single damage as a roar attack. It's definitely something to kind of constantly think about when you're playing. If you have a creature with only 1 health, there are many different ways they can be unexpectedly damaged and taken out of the board. And Feddas throws out an Uproot. Another lucky roll, it hits my Armor instead of Tyr. This game might have turned out quite a bit differently if Tyr had been killed instead. And there, sure enough, is a Dart Maniac. He uses Take Out My Armor. Brings in a Scout, but he is not able to use his Flourish this turn. I think he's feeling the pressure now of the end game approaching. If he can't get rid of Tyr, things are going to go ugly for him very quickly. My Raven pecks the Dart Maniac to death. Go ahead and bring a Battle Bard out, buff Tyr up. Get a nice 11-point hit. And then we'll fill up the board, try to end this. Bring out a Shield Maiden for front line. Leviathan to the Hunter for a hook. Intense Training for the Battle Bard still in my hand, held in reserve. And turn it over to Feddas. And let's see if he can pull any miracles out. If he has another Wildfire, that could at least keep him alive for 1 more turn. Something very close. He has the Venus of Vinebound Jotun, which does 3 damage to everybody and kills almost everybody, but Tyr is still alive with 16 attack. And that's just enough with the hook that I just brought out to finish this game off at 8 mana. So there you go, GU cards. There is a match where Flourish was defeated. Admittedly, it was a bit of special circumstances, not a very tight Super Rush Flourish deck, which is generally the one that everybody gets annoyed by, myself included. And there were some lucky rolls on my part, and Feddas looked like he had not such a great draw through a lot of the game. So to make up for that, my next match will be one where I'm getting totally owned by a Flourish deck. That'll come to you soon. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider using my referral code to support my Gods Unchained addiction. It's always fun to buy more cards. The link should be in the description of the video.